Your costliest habit could be the need to control. What does the need to control have to do with your energy throughout the day, with your willpower, and with exhaustion? Today we're going to uncover that. I look forward to it.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Dr. Wade. This show was created for and inspired by the thousands of patients I've served, so it's time for me to speak up and speak out on their behalf. With a wide range of experts, we bring you weekly insights, diving deep into topics of controversy to bust through the sugar coating that keeps you and your family stuck in the mainstream.
Needing to control an outcome is placing a condition and a stress. For example, this is a distinction that will not be uncovered in this quick hit today, but needing to control an outcome means you're attaching all this energy, all this forcefulness into this outcome, and you tighten up. There's a tightening. If I'm playing tennis and I need to control this ball, then everything I do is with this force of control versus relaxing and letting go and just hitting the ball in the direction I want it to go. I don't have to think about relaxation. I don't have to think about where it's going. I literally just intend it and let my body do that work. Conversely, needing to control everything in your life or many things in your life or some things in your life is costing you energy. My whole point for this is, can you expose where you're wasting and where it's costing you energy? So you, as the user, as becoming more conscious, can start to unravel where this stress and strain comes from, because this is where you're internalizing in your body. If I need to have something come out this way, then I am now tightening into, I have to have this happen, or else. What's attached to the other side if it doesn't? What if you can go in loosely, more relaxed, more flowing? And that is what we're talking about. We're talking about the paradox of allowing and letting go of control, which seems scary, which seems uncertain, and then allowing the direction you're moving, the intention you're having, the focus you're giving to then manifest itself or present itself or open up into that field. Allow that to happen. Allowing it to happen has a sense of calmness and poise, and active participation is not control. It's not control. Active participation is a step forward with a knowingness and a like I said, a calm poise, a trust in that process, and not blind faith, blind trust. But you have to be rooted somewhere. You have to be rooted in this, I am connected to a bigger thing beyond this. So I don't have to force and control everything in my life. So we're talking about how to release stress and tension in your body and in your life. I don't know about you, but I have been a bit of a control freak. And I say that loosely. I am a control freak when it comes to some details. And when I started to realize and look at where my life was moving in a direction of what do I have to control today. And when I started to break down this theory, this need, when one of my mentors basically kind of exposed in this process of growth years ago, and it continues to fascinate me, but it comes up every day with patients again, because we perceive or we have this belief set that control means this in our life. And so when we control something and when we think we have the need to control something, that is energy, and we're talking about energy expenditure and where our intention and energy goes. And if we continue to feel as though I need to have this, this, and this in an organization in my day, and that's not there, then everything I'm doing is scrambling to try to maintain control. Let's go over some real examples where you can see how control may be costing you, and it may be your most costly habit. And again, this is arguable, but depending on where you are in your life, what you're struggling with, where you want to break free, where you're finding maybe incongruencies, or where you're not seeing the benefits and the opportunities that are right in front of you, and you might see more of the struggles or you feel frustrated. That's what this is about. So if we step back for a moment and ask about where am I controlling something in my life, let's look at an example. So if I have this belief that I have to, be a certain way and that I have to have people treat me a certain way. For example, when I'm driving from my home to my office, if I believe that everyone should be as safe a driver as me or as unsafe, or take the kind of risks that I take because, again, through my lens, and I feel like there's this control, like I leave at this time at 7:15 or I leave at 8:30 and I get to my office by this time and it takes me 17 minutes. If I go this route, it takes me 15 minutes if I go that route. And so if I'm looking at this from a perspective of where is the frustration coming from in my life, and I work backwards, I can then start to discover where my myths and where my belief set is around needing to have control. Like, I need to control how much money I make during the month. I need to control how many hours I work during the day. I need to control how I eat. I need to control how people communicate with me. I need to control when I get these emails out, how I get these emails out, how I'm being perceived. The more meaning you place on something, the more you have to have it come out a certain way, the more you're creating resistance. And I'm exposing this because you might know this intellectually. I'm assuming you do at some stage, at some level, but really we miss the perspective when it comes to ourselves and our health. For example, if I feel like I need to, here's an example with a patient that brought this conversation up. If I feel I need to fit in and I need to socialize, and yet on one hand I want to lose weight, I'm working on my ideal weight, I'm working on reducing inflammation in my body, I'm working on healing a condition, my gut, my thyroid, whatever it might be, and you get this interface. You have this need to feel social and feel connected and not be too restrictive, and yet you have this desire and need to improve your health. And when the two meet, for example, at your friend's birthday party or a night out with some friends, you go willy-nilly and you let loose. And the other side of that is that then there's this self-worth, self-esteem, self-deserving issues that come up as a result of the behavior, because there's this dichotomy, there's a paradox, there's a conflict, and we call it a me or an inner conflict where it's you fighting yourself because on one hand you want this, but the behavior on the other hand is very restrictive and you don't want to feel and don't need to feel restrictive. That need to control the outcome is an energetically consuming behavior. And so if you ask that question, where and what do I think I need to control here, and why do I need to control this? How can I let go of control and still move towards my objective, my goal, my vision, my best self? So whether it be weight loss, whether it be overall reducing inflammation, feeling better, whether it be just being able to have a better night's sleep. So if you can let go of some perceptions of your need to control, you can let go of some resistance and some fears, because again, you're going to uncover what is truly valuable to you, which is, why is this behavior existing? And just a sidebar, a caveat, we don't want to spend too much time in why. We want to ask the question and we want to move forward to the how. We want to ask, how can I change this? How can I get better at this? How can I tweak my behavior? How can I shift my perspective? And as we do shift that perspective, you can gain insight as to what your driving behaviors are and where your inner conflict is. And the key to this inner conflict is that this battle goes on day in and day out. And the end result is, as a patient, you're frustrated with your results because you feel like you're doing the right things and you feel like you're following a program. And yet it's hard at the same time to stay on a program because you feel restricted, and that's one of your criterion. So how do you release the restrictiveness? For example, people say, eating healthy tastes like cardboard. Absolutely, it's the furthest thing from the truth. And in my opinion, eating is simple. Eating is and can be really complicated, and it can be simple. If I have to control everything that goes into my mouth and someone else is buying it and I'm exposed to societal, then I'm going to walk around being super stressed and I'm not going to eat anything. However, if I let go of the need to be perfect, and if I actually take action in making better choices and preparing for my journey, which we can uncover, by the way, down the road in a future podcast, because this is a theme with many of my patients and with some of my colleagues and friends that struggle in this area of travel. And what happens is if I can better plan and prepare for that, knowing that I don't have to be perfect. See, that's a fundamental base. That's a foundation for where this comes from. I don't have to be perfect, but my health is serious and I have to pay attention. So how do I live that and let go of the restrictive feeling and let go of the need to control everything that goes into my mouth, into my body, and allow the imperfections to be there, but still enjoy and fully be joyful in my day. In other words, I don't want to be deprived when I socialize with friends, and I'm not. I don't have to. And I don't want to feel restricted or a lack of socialness, but I also don't have that need that it's going to come through eating what they eat. And I'm independent enough. I'm conscious enough. I don't need to fit in and, for example, drink alcohol when others are drinking. I can imbibe in an adult beverage when and where I want, how I want, and there's no stress around it. And, when you're recovering from an illness, there are precautionary things that you want to be aware of, but those are my choices. That's not someone putting it on me and saying, you have to do this, you have to do that, you need to be this, you need to be that. Because this is, again, layering on top your belief system around what you have to control. And control is energy. You can't control everything. I can't control when I travel whether I find a gluten-free restaurant or not, whether I find someone to actually execute in the restaurant the gluten-free statement. Because, again, they can state it's gluten-free and they can be aware of it, but the delivery is the rest of the rest of the equation. And sadly, it doesn't always happen. And that's just, our society has gotten better and better and better with it. But again, acknowledging it is one thing, delivering it on the other, and then making sure we deliver on that promise, which it is gluten-free. And again, there's many episodes where they would make that promise and then there's some gluten exposure. Now, again, this isn't about gluten specifically, but this is about where you're controlling. And I want you to just first of all recognize the subtlety of control. And the subtlety of control is it's going to bleed into everything else. It's going to be an undertone that creates stress in your life. And that's really what we're after, is how do we reduce some of the stress? Some of it is you placing it on you. Some of it is someone else's belief system that you're operating under, and yet you don't realize you made that choice to allow that belief to be perpetuated. And some of you are like, well, what do you mean I allow it? No, I think for myself. My question is, do you really truly think for yourself? Because we've all had influences from mother, fathers, teachers, preachers. And in that upbringing state, we see the world through this lens. And as we see the world through this lens, we adopt this sight picture, basically what we see and how we see the world through our own lens. And we all have this different pattern. I mean, for example, someone gives you a look and you're going to see one thing. Someone gives you another look and some of you are going to see something completely different based on your life experiences and what that look means and how you perceive it and how your EQ, IQ, health of the state of your mind is, but also all the attachments we created. So if you think about control as attachments, it's how you've wrapped up the meaning of something to either drive or direct behavior. And if you let go of some control and you just acknowledge that I'm going to be fine as I go through this, and I'm not going to restrict myself as much as I'm going to guide myself along the way, creating behaviors that actually build health, but not to the point where I don't enjoy my life. Do you see that balance? It's an interface of joy and fulfillment and having some guidance and some direction that suits and serves your best self. And that's often where we run into problems. We want our best self, but we feel it's so restrictive. So then in the middle, we're stuck because we feel like, oh, I just can't make this work. I want this, but it's so hard to do it. And it's so hard to be this free, loving spirit if I'm always just doing this rigidity. So nothing could be further from the truth that being healthy has to be stressful. It isn't. In fact, there's rigid behaviors, there's rigorous behaviors, and then there's flexibility. And then there's understanding that I create the flexibility and that I can influence how I travel. And guess what? If I am ill-prepared on a trip that I travel on, I go with the lesser of evils. I'm going to do whatever I can to sustain myself. But I also know I can intermittent fast. I can fast. I'm not going to be left with nothing to eat ever. I can get through a few days even if I had to. And my body's actually going to rebuild and reset some stem cells in my immune system. So, I mean, there's this understanding that in my preparation and how we help patients and how I've learned to modify mind so I have joy, I have a healthy lifestyle, and I have joy, and I enjoy my life, and I can socialize. To me, it's and these things. It's not or. It's not an either or. I'm going to have a fit, healthy, functional, flexible body, or I'm not. Or I'm going to, break the rules all the time. It's I'm going to have those things, and I'm going to enjoy my life, and I'm going to enjoy great food, and I'm going to enjoy great social experiences, and I'm going to have fun, and I do have fun. And I'm also grateful and appreciative of all the things I have in my life. Challenges that have taught me and continue to teach me and will, and those that I've learned from, and those people that I have surrounded myself with that I don't control, by the way, and who, once I let go of needing to control their behaviors and their responses and how they think and what they think and who I'm around, and I just let go and I participate in life, I've let go of one energy consumption factor that drains my battery throughout the day. This is my wish for you. My wish is that you let go of the incessant energy consumption means that you have. And learning about where control fits in is huge in understanding that process, where you're literally unconsciously giving energy into a system that you just, quite frankly, could use in other areas, and you can let go of and start to have more peace within the body. Because another theme of health topics are going to spin right out of this need and why it's destructive in the long run. Hopefully you get one nugget out of this, and that's learning about where control fits in your life, how you've been needing control in certain areas, and again, how to start to ask those questions, to let go. What can I let go of that I think I have to have today, that I already can have and do have if I just shift my perspective a little bit and let go of the need to control? I'd love your feedback. I'd love any comments or questions or further need for elaboration. That'd be great. So I'm blown away by all the participation, and I certainly appreciate the feedback. That means a ton. If you haven't rated or reviewed, I'd love it. And again, this means more to those readers and those people that do struggle with health, and that's why this exists, so that people have a resource to break through things that aren't talked about every day. You are a health warrior if you're listening, if you're conscious, if you're taking charge, not control, taking charge of your health. Until next time, ciao.
Thank you much for listening to this week's episode. I look forward to any feedback and or questions you might have. Direct them to our Facebook page, Frankly Speaking, Dr. Wade at Facebook. Okay, my fellow health warriors, it's time to head over to iTunes, franklyspeakingdrwade.com. There, you can rate, review, and subscribe, as well as share, so more of our brothers and sisters can grow to realize their voice. Speaking up means you matter. So, get on it. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views expressed are not medical advice and are not meant to replace the medical advice of your doctor. This podcast, including Dr. Wade Annenson and his guests, disclaim responsibility for any adverse effects you may experience from the specific use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse and accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about the guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for such services or product. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.